So today we're going to be talking about old favorites that still hold up. But first, a shout out to today's sponsor, Squarespace. Whether you want to build a website, online business, marketing tools, analytics, Squarespace is an all-in-one platform that makes it really easy for you to build your online presence and grow your business. But we'll talk more about that in a little bit. So if you've been with me for a while, or you've watched a backlog of my videos, which I wouldn't recommend, you'll know that my taste in reading has changed so much from the beginning of my channel to now. Not only the type of books that I was picking up, but what I used to enjoy in books versus what I enjoy now. I mean, it's been like 4 years, so I guess it's reasonable that I've changed as a human. But a lot of times when people watch my old videos and then say, hey, I picked up this book based off your recommendation, I kind of hurt a little bit inside because I maybe wouldn't recommend it now. But let's look at some of my old favorites, old books that I used to hype a whole lot, and let's talk about the ones that still hold up today that you should still pick up. We are going to start, maybe predictably, with Peter Pan. Once upon a time, I realized that I never gave classics a chance. I had only read a handful of classics in my school years. Anyway, I hadn't read very many classics at all in my life. And so I thought, hey, let's try them out. Let's see if I could like them. Enter Peter Pan. Peter Pan, I think, was the first classic I picked up outside of school. And not only was it an incredible experience reading it, it helped me fall in love with classics, but it's also my favorite book of all time. I've reread this book several times since my first read through, and I skipped my reread of it in December because I was going to narrate the audiobook, but then that fell through because of a whole bunch of nonsense. Hopefully someday I could still do it, but as of right now it's on the back burner, so I robbed myself of a reread, so I plan on rereading it very, very soon because I want to so bad. Anyway, that's off topic. Peter Pan is very different from the Disney movie, so please read it if you haven't already, but it is such... oh my gosh, it's such an incredible story. And someday soon, I will do a reread and we will have a full-on discussion about why I love it so much. But this is my favorite book of all time, so obviously, it holds up. Next book is going to be A Monster Calls. So this is a middle grade book about a little boy whose mom is dying of cancer and he is processing it. He's processing it by a monster showing up and kind of destroying his life. I think this book is really powerful in and of itself, and the illustrations in this book add a lot of beauty to the story as well. And I'm really happy that I read this book, especially because a very close friend of mine had just recently passed away from cancer when I picked this up, so it was the right time for me, despite it being a really hard time to read it. But I also just want to real quick shout out the audiobook because it's done by, I always mess up his name, I think it's Jason Isaacs. Anyway, Lucius Malfoy narrated this book, and this is the only time, I believe, that I've ever listened to an audiobook and thought, because of the performance he brought, I can't have had a better experience reading it myself. It's a really powerful book with a really powerful audiobook, and it holds up. Next on my list is Letters to the Lost. Letters to the Lost is a young adult book. I think all of these, or at least most of these, are going to be young adult books because I used to exclusively read YA. No, there are some classics on here. There's a couple. Okay, anyway, moving forward. Letters to the Lost is about a teenager who has recently, her mom has recently passed away and she's dealing with grief, and then as things move forward, she's also dealing with learning things about her mom that make it hard to process her grief because now she has new feelings. I think that's all I'll say. And then it also deals with Declan, who's dealing with his own stuff, and he works at a graveyard and happens to pick up one of the letters that Juliet wrote to her mom and left on her grave, and he read it and he wrote back. And it didn't go well for him, but then it's adorable and sweet. And I love hard-hitting contemporaries that deal with really tough subjects, but this one also has a really sweet romance along with it, and I loved it. I also loved the companion book. Next is The Giver. The Giver is about a young boy who lives in this world that is very, very sterile and controlled, and everything is controlled. How many kids they're allowed to have, when they're allowed to have those kids, who they're gonna marry, what kind of career they're gonna have. Everything is told to them, and they simply obey. Our main character learns that his job is going to be the new receiver, which means that he is going to receive all of the world's information, and then all of the people that run this little community of theirs, they just ask the receiver, what should we do? Because the receiver knows, because he has all the information. And our main character decides, maybe this life isn't so good and we should change it. This is a really, it's short, but it's so good. And after I read book one, I bought the whole Giver quartet and read the whole series, which I would not recommend doing. let's just treat The Giver like a standalone, shall we? Next, I will briefly talk about the Remnant Chronicles. And I say briefly because I still talk about it, despite it being a long time ago that I read these books. Runaway princess, two boys, one love, mystery of who's who. There's plenty of cliche, and there's plenty of really bad decisions made. But honestly, the reason I love this series so much is because of the character growth, specifically with Leia, I still don't know how to say her name. Who she is in book 1 is not awesome. Who she is in book 3 is inspiring and incredible. And I love this series for the growth that happens in it. There's a lot of people that don't think it's the best ever, but I don't really care. Next is Winnie the Pooh, which is a children's classic, and it's amazing. I bought this book for my mom, and then I read it before I gave it to her, and then I kept it for myself. I bought her own copy. Again, Winnie the Pooh is actually, there's actually 4 books in this series. 4 Winnie the Pooh books. 2 books that are a compilation of short stories, and then 2 books of poetry. I just sent the other books home with my sister-in-law so that she could read them, but I especially recommend the 2 compilation of short stories. They are so sweet and so much fun to read. They're chaotic, as a lot of children's classics are, but they're also just heartwarming and adorable. And I really want to reread this one soon as well. Probably when she gives me my books back, because she annotates my books when I lend them out to her. Probably when she gives them back to me, I'll go ahead and reread them with her notes because I love these books so much. Next is one of the only recent adult books that I have on this list. I've Got Your Number. All these books I read at least a 1.5 to 2 years ago. But I feel like I've talked about this fairly recently. It doesn't matter. This is an adult romance. It's about a girl who finds a phone in a trash bin and decides, mine now. But it's a guy's business phone, so he kinda needs it back. She refuses to give it back because she really needs a phone, so she just forces him to let her be his personal assistant, so she forwards a bunch of stuff to him. She's also ridiculously nosy and flawed and way too in her head, as Sophie Kinsella's protagonists always seem to be. And it ends up being one of the cutest romances ever, honestly. I'm not big into romance, but this one, oh, I really enjoyed. Don't know why I just put that back on the shelf. I need it for the thumbnail. Next is another middle grade, and it's called Wonderstruck. I still don't own it. I wish I did. I need to read it to my son someday. This book is a dual perspective. We have a young boy who, oh man, I believe he's deaf and he's running away from home. And a young girl who is mute, and I don't remember what her story is. His story is told through words, and her story is told through illustrations. Their 2 stories are connected, and it's absolutely beautiful. I don't talk about this book enough. I need to buy it and reread it, because it's beautiful. And the last book I'm going to talk about in this video is Frankenstein, also one of my early classics. Again, really want to reread this one soon. You know what Frankenstein is about. It is really different from the movies, so if you haven't read the classics, the classic singular, please do. I had a surprising amount of compassion for the monster, and I felt surprisingly different than I thought I would about the doctor. Not the doctor, Dr. Frankenstein. This book was a lot more layered than I thought it would be, and I read it really early on in my classic life, and it was at a time that I really wasn't used to classic language yet, so I feel like a lot of it I've forgotten, which is a big reason why I want to reread it, because now it's much easier for me to read a classic book than it was when I was brand new. But I do really recommend this book just for the depth that it provides that the movies don't seem to offer. There are a couple of other books that I could have put on this list, but I decided to cut it short because I'm done talking now. But one series that I considered putting on is The Hunger Games. However, with the new prequel coming out, I'm going to be rereading The Hunger Games soon as I'm done with my Harry Potter reread, and then we will decide if it holds up. But I'm sure books 1 and 2 will, because I've always loved those books, and I'm sure book 3 will still be horrible. But now, a monologue on what stands the test of time by Squarespace. Things that have stood the test of time. Classics that still hold relevance today. Stories that are still an inspiration for writers. Tropes that never seem to get old, no matter how many times we read them. There's still ways to make them fresh.
You know what else stands the test of time?
Our love.
Well, I was thinking about my Squarespace website.
Get out. He actually has a point though, because Squarespace is the platform that we've been using for our websites for a while. For my website, I use integrated analytics, which means that I get real-time campaign and website analytics from the source, so I know what content is leading to higher engagement and tracking metrics from send to sale. There's also social sharing, which means that there are configurable sharing buttons letting my visitors share my content on their platforms. Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, Pinterest, all those things that I really don't know anything about. Corey also has a Squarespace website. Actually, he has two because of course he does. Corey and I both recommend Squarespace, so be sure to head over to Squarespace and get your free trial. And if you use the link and code in my description, when you're ready to launch, you get 10% off of your domain name. I recommend Squarespace, so go check them out. So those are the books that I talked about in this video. Old favorites that still hold up, that I still recommend and want to reread. I'd love to continue chatting with you about this in the comments. Let me know some of your old favorites that you think still hold up. Let me know if you like any of these books that I talked about today. I post videos every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.
You know what else stands the test of time?
Why would you come in like that? You look like a demented person.
How? You know what else stands the test of time?
I can't do it.
Okay, just do it.
All right.
I'd be such a better professional actor. Give me someone I can work with.
All right. Go.
You know what else stands the test of time?
You're such a creep. Like a freaking demented doll. All right, do it.
I've got big meaty claws.
No!